Hi everyone, so I wanted to do a demo and review for you today on the new Hourglass Ambient bronzers. These came out a few weeks ago, and I know that some people have had questions, sorry as I touch up really quick, about how to use them, if I could do a review. Just before I even begin, as a side note, I do work for Hourglass, but both of these bronzers I happen to purchase myself. So, I'm a true consumer at the end of the day. I have this literature that I swiped from Barney's because they get the literature and not all stores do. So I'm just going to read to you a little bit about them, and then I'm going to talk about the shades, how I use them, that sort of thing, and then show you what it looks like on. So I have this one here. Ambient lighting bronzer fuses the illuminating effects of photoluminescent technology with bronze pigments to deliver a natural sun-kissed glow while exhibiting depth and dimension. The sheer, airy formula sweeps on softly for a healthy-looking, radiant finish to the skin. It talks about the innovation that it's airy and lightweight. The transparent particles allow for seamless blending and color transitions. The powders are blended by hand using an advanced mescalare. I can never say that one right. It's an Italian technique that they use when they blend the pigments, which is why they look so beautiful and swirled together. Let's see. No two look alike. Can be used alone or paired with ambient lighting powder. Can also be used for subtle contouring. There's two shades. We have Luminous Bronze Light and Radiant Bronze Light. Luminous Bronze Light, which is this one, they're describing as a medium tan shade fused with luminous light, a champagne pearl powder for a softer candlelit warmth, ideal for fair or light complexions. And then Radiant Bronze Light, they're saying, is a warm bronze shade fused with radiant light, a golden beige powder to mimic a summer glow. So it says there's a few application tips. Using the #1 powder brush, gently swirl the entire compact to pick up the perfect balance of pigment and powder. Lightly apply all over face to achieve a sun-kissed look. And then for defining the face rather than warming it up, use the ambient lighting brush, which I have mine here. The ambient lighting brush to apply ambient powder as a subtle contour along the temples, hollows of the cheeks, and then the jawline, which I should have done that, and that. Ambient bronzer works best when applied after ambient lighting powder and before ambient lighting blush. So I have two shades. The first one that I purchased was the Radiant Bronze Light, and I purchased this during the Sephora VIB sale. And then while that one was still going on, I decided, I just want to talk about both because I want to have both, because I had played with both in store, and I saw just how it worked on different skin tones, and so I wanted to pick Luminous up. Because I want to show you the original ambient powders that are swirled with them so you can kind of get a feel for what they were going for. So, the Radiant Bronze Light is swirled with the Radiant powder, right? So it's not looking like this huge difference, except this one has a bit of swirl in it, and obviously the compact color is different. So that's Radiant. So this Radiant on its own is already pretty warm and bronze and golden. I mean, if I show you that a little bit on my hand, that's already what Radiant looks like, right? So it has like a golden, warm, kind of slightly orangey kind of tone to it, right? Okay, so there's that. Then Luminous Light looks like that. Comparing that to the Radiant Light, obviously it's going to be much lighter and more cool toned, slightly. When I show you what Luminous Light looks like on its own, now you should never swatch these because that's not really a way to tell how they look. When I swatch that, that's what the Luminous Light looks like. So already it's a lot lighter and has more of like a pearl to it. This has a little bit more of like a shimmer. Not a lot, it's like a strewn shimmer, whereas this is definitely pearly. The Luminous is more pearly. So with that said, that's kind of going to be how the bronzer is going to work overall. So Radiant Light is certainly better for, you know, medium to slightly deep skin tones. It doesn't go dark enough, I'd say, to really work on someone who's African American, although you could use it as a blush because it does have a lot of red tones in it, and it could be like a really nice bronzy, glowy blush, but that's not what it's marketed for. So we're going with what they're designing it to do, right? Luminous Bronze Light is better for lighter complexions, light to medium. If you're really fair, I don't think this is going to be the best option for you because there's just a lot of pigment to it. Which brings me to talking about the fact that there's a lot of pigment in here. It's saying that it's an airy, lightweight powder, delivers buildable coverage, or excuse me, buildable color and a radiant finish. I wouldn't agree with that personally. I'd say that they are pretty darn pigmented on their own. That is just barely tapping the product in the radiant, and this is, I'm gonna do a quick light swirl. That's what the Luminous looks like. I know it's hard to tell. So, but basically what I'm trying to say is that these are pretty full color, which is fantastic because it means you'll use less product, but it can be a little trickier to work with, so I wouldn't say to use a brush that's any denser than an Hourglass #1. Now, I don't have other brushes that are this size and this loose. That's the only reason I'm mentioning the #1. You don't have to buy the Hourglass brush. Surely if you do, you're gonna enjoy it and it's gonna be created really well and built with care and built with quality, and you'll love it, but you don't need to buy the #1. I mean, of course, they're gonna suggest you buy the #1, but you just wanna find a really, really loose brush. The only other large brushes that I have of this size are too dense, and it's just gonna deposit too much color. Now, in store, I have used it with the Ambient brush, and it gives intense color, so for sculpting, yeah, certainly you can do it like that, but for me, I'm using these as a bronzer because they have a glow to them, and I wanna achieve the warming bronze goddess look that these are kind of really designed to do. My complaint is that I wish they would have done like a dim bronze or a mood bronze, just because I think it really would have added some variety to the collection, because I think just doing quick swatches on your hand, you can't tell a massive difference between the two. On the skin, there's a little bit more of a difference, but it's not a night and day difference to where I'd say there's definitely two different shades of bronzer. But with that said, I do happen to prefer the Radiant Light. It is a little bit more red and it has less of a shimmer to it. And I don't have a lot of red tone bronzers, so that's what sold me initially when I was getting them. The compacts are beautiful. They are the same kind of golden mirror as the blushes. So, and they're the same size compact as the powders, except you get a gram more of product, and these certainly feel heavier and heftier. So I'm gonna apply both shades for you using the #1 brush. I'm not familiar with other large brushes that are loose. If you have any suggestions, please leave them below, because I'd be glad to, people would be happy to know those, and then I'd also like to get, maybe a few of them myself, just because I want to play around with different brushes and see which one I like the most. So I'm gonna do, let's see, which shade do I want to do first? I think I'm gonna do the Luminous Light first. And the way that I use these, truthfully, is you tap your brush in it and then you go. You tap off the excess and then you gently sweep it. So I've already done my foundation. I'm wearing Chanel Perfection Lumiere because it's more of like a very natural finish foundation. It doesn't have any extra glow that would make the bronzer look different than it does on skin. It's not super matte. And I did powder my skin first. I used the Nars Light Reflective Setting Powder. These look great under, or on top of ambient powders, but then everything looks great on top of ambient powders, so I wanted to kind of keep it fairly neutral. When I play around with these, I really love them under the dim light, and also I love them under mood light. I love Radiant under mood light, especially. I think that's gorgeous, because the pink tone really helps to kind of amp it up. So I've gone back and I've tapped with my brush about twice now, not swirling it, not picking up very much product at all. Now, on some people, they show up pretty shimmery. I have a lot of texture, skin texture from acne scarring left on my cheekbones, so you can certainly see more of the sheen on my skin than you would with someone who has nice texture. But it's not glittery. So I put a little bit on my eyelids, blended it. I put it on the places where I would naturally tan, right? So the top of the cheekbones, the temple, across the forehead. That's what the Luminous looks like. There's a bit of glow. It's hard to see in this lighting. I can definitely tell there's a bit of like some sheen left on this skin, but it's not going on glittery, which is the one thing that they really pride themselves in, is they don't look chunky glitter or insanely like highlighty shimmer, which is something I love. On the other side of my face, I'm going to do the Radiant, And look at how much product you get just by tapping your brush. So I'm gonna tap that off, and then with this I really hold, because my skin's doesn't have a lot of depth to it. So I really wanna just like kind of let the brush just kind of flop around on the skin, just hardly even touching it. Because if I don't, then it's just gonna apply too much. Now I haven't used these with an ambient powder brush on myself because I just playing with the pigment, and I tried to use it with a number 2 brush first, which is, I don't know if you're familiar, it's a lot smaller and more dense, and it just went on like, oh my god, that's some pigment. So, you know, because of that, and like, I watched the Beautypedia review on it, and Nathan like swirled his number 2 in there for like a minute and then just applied it straight to his face, and I was wondering how it didn't look crazy. I mean, he's more deep than I am, and he used the Luminous Light, I believe, and it looked great, but, I don't know, for me, I'm like, shoot, if I did too much, you would totally tell that it's there. So, okay, applying them to the skin, you can't see a massive difference between the two. If you swatch them heavily, you totally can. And, you know, just as a general rule, if you're more fair-skinned, you would probably appreciate Luminous more, and if you're medium-skinned, you would like the Radiant Light more, you would appreciate it, or it would look a little nicer on you. As a general rule, right? But here I am with like light medium skin using the Radiant, and I much prefer it because it has a red tone, and I don't have a lot of red tone bronzers, and red tones can look really like sunburnt in a way, in a nice way, like in like you just came in from a jog and you've been on the beach or something like that. I love red tone blushes, I love red tone eyeshadows, you know, I just think it does something for the skin that I really like, even, you know, if red eyeshadow makes you look sickly, oh, God forbid, I still love it. I think if you love ambient powders and you love the blushes, get the bronzer. I mean, you can have the collection, and you know, if you like the way that they work, the blushes and the powders, you'll like these. It's certainly, you know, on par with their, with the rest of their collection. There's no glitter, there's no talc in these, which is great, so it doesn't accentuate texture. It really is like a veil of color. They're pigmented, so you really need to keep that in mind. I personally wish they would have done more interesting shades, but it's a nice bronzer, especially if you don't want a shimmery bronzer, but you don't want a matte bronzer. For me, I wouldn't use this to sculpt my face with because, well, first of all, I'd use a contour powder that's gray-based, but that's my, you know, fight against that. But I don't know if I use these to sculpt because they're true bronze. They really don't have like, you know, like Benefit Hoola has like an olive undertone, so it can look a little bit more shadowy. Chocolate Soleil from Too Faced has a little bit more of a gray base, so it does work for sculpting. But these are truly bronze colors. They have a lot of warmth to them. So I wouldn't use them to sculpt because, you know, that's not a sculpting powder, you know? Also, keep in mind though, if you have fair skin, just pick up the Radiant Light because this is certainly the fair-skinned bronzer. They don't market it that way, but because it goes so transparent and because it's not super pigment-based to begin with, you'll be able to get away with really, you know, swirling your brush in it and applying it gently to the skin, and it's not going to show up as strong as these bronzers will. So, you know, even though they didn't include something in this collection for fair skin, for fair skin people, I don't think personally, you can still have an option in the Hourglass range, and because it's the same technology, the photoluminescence, and it really, you know, goes on smooth and soft and has a beautiful glow to it. Not a glittery glow, but a satin glow. As you can see, I just look healthy. You still have an option. So you know what? They give you more product than you get in ambient powders. They're so pigmented that if you use this every single day, it'll see you through the summer, into the fall, and probably the winter. Like if I used the same amount that I used today, which is more than I would normally do, I could have this, and I used it every single day, I could probably have it for at least a year and a half before I got anywhere close to finishing it, because you just don't need very much at all. And I kind of like that. But yeah, you have to get the brush right as well. That's my only other thing. You have to get the brush right, because otherwise it's gonna be a little too much to work with. But I like them. I think they're great. Pick them up if you love ambient. If not, if you need a bronzer that isn't neon orange or isn't super gray, it's a great option. So yeah, I'm gonna keep playing with them. My opinion might change, but as of now, they're nice. I'm not head over heels in love with them, but they're nice. But I personally prefer Radiant because of the texture of my skin and the color. So, okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, leave them below. I'll be glad to answer them. I can give you some inside information without revealing much, but you know, I can give you little Hourglass tips that I experience when I play with them in store. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will talk to you all real soon. Bye.